we are here for women who are writers, and I would like to introduce them in case you haven't met them before. This is Lynn Bornstein. This is Meryam Zislovich. This is Joanne Miller, and I am Sharon Skolnick-Bagnoli. And I have a few questions for us all together. And this is something that when I ask a question, anybody who wants to jump in and answer is fine. How do you think the state of the world today might affect someone reading your book?
Dead silence.
Well, I think I could answer that. My book happens to be a total escape novel. It's one of those novels you read at the beach or on a rainy day. So when the world gets too terrible, in fact today there were two horrible things, you pick up that book and it makes you forget for a little while what's going on. So I think in that way.
That's a very profound thing to do for people. It's a good thing to do for people, that they can have something that can take them somewhere else.
Well, Shaketown addresses prejudice,
both
for women and their choice of profession, and of course the Chinese and what the Chinese suffered here in America. And we're going through a period of deep and very scary prejudice right now with the Islamic nation. And I'd like people to give some thought about what that's about. So hopefully
the book might help them do that if they go in there. Yeah, Meryam?
My book teaches love. It's a teaching book from the Jewish tradition, and it's based in the aim of it is in a work for the purpose of becoming the most loving human being you can be in the world. It deals with the play between soul and ego in each and every one of us, and how we can better attune to soul and make ego the servant of soul and not the master of her.
Interesting.
And soul is about love. Soul is about bringing divine love into the earth.
Thank you. So Joanne, could you, in turn, each of you ask the person to your left, which might include me when we get to you, one question about her book. Ask Meryam one question.
your book comes from very much your background. How do you feel other audiences can appreciate it best?
Although specifically Jewish, it is also universal. The teachings are universal. Yeah, Judaism wouldn't be so appealing to me, although a Jewess, if it was not universal, if it didn't apply to every human being on the planet, and if it didn't encompass a worldview that, if it didn't encompass the whole world in its view.
Good answer.
Thank you. Interesting. Now, Meryam, please ask Lynn a question about her book.
I know so little about your book. Are you in it a lot?
No, I'm not in it. The book, the main characters in the book are made out of whole cloth, but there are some modeled physically on people I have met, and one is very much like a person I did know quite well at one time. And unfortunately, when she read the book, she didn't enjoy the way she was portrayed. So
but
she
they recognized
retaliated.
herself.
Oh yes, and she retaliated by writing a bad review on Amazon. But my publisher says that does happen quite often. But no, unfortunately, I don't think I'm in that book. I mean, all authors have some of them, but no, none of the characters are me. And Sharon, I did read your book, and I found it really interesting. It has so much in it, but I wanted to ask you...
Colored edges.
Colored edges. Yes, colored edges.
By Sharon Skolnick-Bagnoli.
By Sharon Skolnick-Bagnoli. The part about the colors I found very interesting. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, you know, the book had many names. It certainly didn't start out as Colored Edges. It started out as A Choice of Matter, which was a play on the term a matter of choice. And then it went through like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different names, and I finally got Colored Edges. And I was writing each chapter to relate to color, this person sort of going through the cycle of their life, and starting in a kind of more visceral area of reds, and then going through, you know, orange and yellow and blue, and so I did that. But when I took chapters of the book into a writing class I was taking, people said, well, why isn't there more about color in your book? And I realized somehow it just, a light went off over my head, and it said, people want to know about color. And so I ended up making the protagonist use color therapy as part of her healing process. And then I decided if people read through the entire book as a gift, I'm going to give them in the appendix a whole study, a whole course about color therapy.
Yes, I found that very interesting.
Thank you.
Very much so, really. Colored edges.
And then the pages of the book have colored edges.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds like Herman Melville in Moby Dick.
Why is that?
When he wrote Moby Dick, he had this huge appendix that had all this information about whales.
Huh.
Which you never see in books published nowadays.
Right, or his book is not
Yes.
published with that.
Yeah.
Well, it's very generous of him. At the same way, I suppose it's generous of me. But I wasn't as obsessed with. Well, there's obsession in the book, but not like obsession about the Great White.
It's been suggested that I write an index of, and I said, well, that will be a whole other book.
You're right. Yes. Well, there are people known as indexers who could do it for you, you know, but or like a glossary or bibliography. Yeah, you have so much. It's so rich. Maybe some rabbis can spend a lifetime on your book later. So I guess I'm left to ask you a question about Shaketown. Are you going to write another book, a novel?
Funny you should ask that, Sharon. As a matter of fact, I am working on a book about Van Gogh. And the working title is called Vincent in Love.
Oh.
But it's not really about a romance, per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's about Vincent's obsession with being loved and being loving. I think a lot of people don't know that at one point in his life he wanted to be a minister. He was very religious. His father was a minister. And he went to the coal fields of Belgium and basically acted like a saint. He gave away everything he had. He lived like a coal worker. Of course, he did have relationships with both men and women during his life. And it's an amazing life that turned out an amazing set of paintings that everybody loves. So
Yes.
I'm writing about Vincent.
Fantastic. Yeah, he deserves a book written about him. I heard some strange things about him. I don't know where I got them, read them, heard them. But that what really happened about the ear is that Gauguin, they got in a fight, they were drunk, and Gauguin cut his outer ear off And Van Gogh didn't want Gauguin to be blamed by the world, so he said he did it.
Well, there are so many versions of this. I know a couple of the ones I read said that he and Gauguin got into an enormous fight, and that Gauguin stomped out of the yellow house down the street, and Vincent followed him with a razor in a rage. But then he stopped himself and he went home and mutilated himself instead. There are so many different viewpoints of this, and even about the way he died.
Right.
So I'm gonna pick one and run with it.
Okay. Okay, next question, you guys. And anybody can answer, or everybody can answer. Did you need to give yourself permission to write a book?
No. The book, it was very clear to me that I have to do it. But throughout the process, my book is a process of 20 years, at least. It started 36 years ago in the audience of the Rav Shlomo Karlibach, where after a concert, the diehards were still circling him at the backyard of Reuven and Yehudit, and he sang a couple more songs. He was indefatigable, you know. He pulled up a book and said, "Now let's study a shtickle Torah on the month of Av." And when I heard a shtickle Torah on the month, I felt like a light bulb turned on in my kishkas, mamish. And I thought to myself, we have a Torah of the month? We have the Torah, we Jews have a Torah of the month, we have a traditional Torah. By that time I was already deeply into astrology. So my connection to the month, to the time is, and they say a woman is connected to time. That the Torah of time is something a woman is organically, intuitively connected to. We feel that with the changes of the moons, the changes in the soul. So I knew I'm gonna. First, I wrote it as a diary, you know, just to see how the themes of the month work in my. And I did it as an inner workbook. Then I started to write on the month, and each month could have become a book. And as I was writing, I could feel that it's a meant to be thing, because material will drop into my lap. Any book I'd open would have something on the theme of the month I was working on. Magazines of Darshan, and at that time it would come from world religions from all around, you know, Lama this and Guru this, and you know, not just Jewish, right? And it wasn't until I came to Israel 9 years ago that I started to condense, you know, and all of a sudden my book doesn't have a million of quotations. It's like my distillation of all that, you know, and coming into a smaller thing. Wow. But the book is in the field of the Kabbalah of time, teachings from the inner depths of the ancient Hebrew sacred calendar. It aims to inspire and guide our inner work with the genius of the Hebrew year and its wisdom of the months. The year as a whole is viewed as a 12-step cycle in our journey on the spiraling path of self-actualization, of bringing sparks of inspiration planted in our soul as seeds to their full manifestation as fruit bearing new seeds. Each month is a step in this yearly process. Each month calls our attention to a certain aspect of body-mind, a certain quality of soul in her interplay with ego, an aspect that is determined and assisted by the unique medicine of the time of each one of the moons. The name of the month, the permutation of the name Havaya, letters, numbers, the zodiac, the dance of the sun and moon, the seasons, harvest celebrations, holidays, Torah portions, and the pronounced body part are all ingredients or prisms that make the special medicine of each moon cycle. although Hebrew is source, the teachings are universal. At the course of writing, I would go through feeling like, wow, it's wonderful, it's great, and then slumping into like, who do you think you are? You're going to be teaching.
The inner critic, yes.
And I would go into like deep self-doubt, and
Sounds familiar.
would not be able to write for periods of time. That's why it took all these very many years.
Well, congratulations on bringing it this far.
Yeah,
Thank you.
birthing it.
Just a little ways longer and you can bring it into
Yeah,
the
it wasn't
whole
until
world.
a year ago where I could feel that I'm an even, okay, it's good, and you can do it, and it can come from you. It's all right, because it doesn't really come from you, but you can be the vehicle, the scribe.
Yes. Do you have anything you want to say, Lynn?
Question or what was?
Well, the question was, did you need to give yourself permission to write a book?
No, I didn't need. I've always written, and no, it's kind of an imperative one has. I think everyone has a creative imperative, and it's just in the way you let that come. I went to art school, and I used to paint a lot, and which was a struggle. And I found writing wasn't a struggle. It kind of came, where painting was always very frustrating because what I had in my mind didn't get on the canvas. So, so no, I didn't have to give myself permission. It was kind of just something that
Do you
was
call yourself a writer?
Yeah, well, you mean on a form, if someone says occupation, I always put community volunteer. And now I put /writer because after all, I'm a professional writer now.
That's right.
Yeah, and I am working on another book. I've been, it's very different. It is me, it's memoir. And I find memoir is a wonderful medium for writing, especially when you get to a certain age. It's great.
Did you have to change anybody's name or?
No, I didn't change anybody's name. In the memoir? No, I didn't.
Didn't wait till they died before you wrote it?
No, none of it is, anything that bad isn't going in the book. But some of it's funny, a lot of it's childhood, but a lot of it's about San Francisco. And there's a fire and earthquake scene because my grandmother lived through that, and it's about her, and it's her telling me stories about the fire and earthquake. And a lot of it's about San Francisco, a lot, how it's changed and so forth. But yeah.
We have very few minutes left, and I would like to ask, is there anything else that we need to cover in this round or lozenge table talk?
I love it.
Ill-shaped.
Well, maybe
All
we
I
should
know
all
is that
Let's talk about colors some more.
You didn't bring a copy of your book. We should all show our
Oh, well,
books.
it will be shown because there are pictures that
oh,
we
great,
have.
okay.
Don't worry about it, yeah.
I'm very remiss
Actually,
that
it's
way.
in the other room, but I
Okay.
forgot to bring it in.
Okay.
I want to say that I can't wait to launch this book and see it kind of out of my hands, because there's another book, a novel, and a personal one that's brewing in
Oh,
me.
good.
This, intellectual, soul, emotional, psychological work has kind of honed my writing skills. And now I want to write my story.
That's great.
Memoir,
I'd love to read it.
kind of, yeah.
That's great.
I'd like to buy the first copy.
California Tales.
Uh-huh.
That's great.
So,
True West.
at this point, maybe good to go around the table and say the name of your book and where people can find it, or how they can find you. Okay, you want to start, Lynn?
Oh, my book is called Laura English, and there'll be an image later. I'm very bad at that. I'm very bad at marketing my own book. But it's named Laura English. My name is Lynn Arias Bornstein, and that's the way you can find it on Amazon. It's on lots of, it's at Book Passage and at Copperfields in Petaluma, and other online sources, at Barnes & Noble. get it on, order it from Barnes & Noble.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Meryam?
My book is called, it's actually written in the Hebrew and the English, and it's called Seasons of Our Soul, and it isn't published yet. It's looking for a publisher. But I can be reached at Zmiriam, Zmiriam Z, Z-M-E-R, Meryam, M-E-R-Y-A-M, Zmiriam at yahoo.com.
Okay, so people that are interested can write to you about it
Exactly.
and get on your list and
Right, exactly.
connect that way. Great, thank you. And Joanne?
Okay, let's do the promo.
Yes.
My book is Shaketown, The Madam's Daughter. You can find it most easily on Amazon.com. It's on a number of other ebook sites as well. And you can reach me at JOM@JoanneOrionMiller.com.
Very good. My book is called Colored Edges, and the subtitle is A Peace Journey. And you can find it on Amazon.com, and you can find it also on my website, which is www, well, it doesn't have to be the W, but visigraph.com, visigraph.com. And then you click on Colored Edges, and you can get it as an ebook or a print book. And
Can we read a sample of it on your website?
yes.
Good thinking. Me too.
Well, thank you all. This has been wonderful. Really
Thank
wonderful.
you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
And wonderful to meet everyone.
Yeah.
What a great
Yes,
group
our
of writers.
Right, exactly.
Wonderful. All writers are great.
Okay. Talk to you guys again. And now I'm talking to you about color, because the book, the novel that I've been working on for a number of years is called Colored Edges. And each chapter has the name of a color, and the writing, the attempt is to evoke what that color brings to my mind and to life. So in seeing colors go by, driving down the East Coast, Delaware, Maryland, at just the moment when the leaves were turning, the mind travels with the colors and travels to the people that we saw that are dear to us, that we got to see on this trip. And I was thinking today I would bring you with me into parts of this novel which have something to do with my life and all of our lives. As I said, each chapter is named for a color and is drawn from that aura of that color or that arena. So now this chapter from Colored Edges is called Terracotta. Coming out of the sweat lodge during a spiritual retreat in Oregon in 1978, Marigold Shearer saw a crowd of Indian people wearing buckskin and jostling one another in the morning mist rising up from the Sprague River. Later that day, the camp leaders had announced that ancestral ghosts of the Klamath tribe had been invoked to be fed by the encampment, and the people there were to leave plates of food by the river that night for these spirits. Marigold had seen them herself before she knew a thing about it. "Now don't freak out, Shearer," muttered Arthur Walking Horse, shifting his hefty frame in the office chair. The place was cluttered and alive with intense energy. Walking Horse's assistant pushed a paper in front of his face, and he signed it without reading it. She had a certain presence, but who would have known that Wilma Mankiller would be elected chief of the Cherokee Nation 5 years later? On this day, she was just one of Arthur's support staff at the International Indian Treaty Council in Oakland. Don't freak out now. You ever had peyote before? No. Think you can handle it? Think she can? Walking Horse turned and consulted with Ravenwolf, casually slouched across the office. It's okay, said Leonard Ravenwolf. That evening, Marigold sat in a huge double circle around the inner edges of a giant teepee. 70 people filled the perimeter of the space, but because it was a circle, the space was uncrowded. When Marigold looked at each face, she was surprised to find herself the only white woman there. There was only one other non-Indian in the circle, another Jewish person, Leonard's lawyer. So here we Jews are again, she thought, doing our fool's dance. Holy fools, mending the world just like we're supposed to. That's what it means to be chosen, she mused, not being better than, but having a special job. Go out and be a priest among nations. That's the drill. Too bad most other people don't understand what we're doing. I guess it can rub them the wrong way, building bridges. From beside her, she heard a whisper from her friend Felix Moss, sitting cross-legged. Do you realize I'm the only California Indian here? His voice was accusatory, hurt. It was true that these Plains Indians, mostly Lakota Sioux and Ojibwa, had invaded California, in a fashion, over the past 10 years. They brought their ways of doing things and their sometimes brash approaches, and often neglected to thank the California Indian communities on whose land they constructed their ceremonial grounds. Leonard Ravenwolf started the central fire and spread out the coals in the shape of a water bird. Soon he came around with cylindrical green slivers of cactus. Chew it all at once and it won't be so bitter, he advised everyone. Going into the altered state, Marigold thought to herself that this was just like going into a synagogue and having the rabbi hand you a joint, mixing the sacred and the psychedelic. It felt right, that is, until Ravenwolf started denouncing Daniel Firesmith, criticizing the movement leader for hanging out with his, quote, Hollywood friends, unquote, and not being available to join them this night with the medicine, the peyote. Marigold sensed the hurt beneath the accusations. Ravenwolf missed Dan Firesmith, she realized. She did too. He was her Danny D, her secret Dan Defiance, her muse and her hero. How could peace ever come to a place so far away, she thought in confusion, when she couldn't even make peace inside her own churning heart.